Valheim is 2021's first big video game success story. Since it was released on Steam Early Access in February, its player base has grown to millions worldwide. As evidenced by this video, I'm one of them. Valheim has me and a small group of friends hooked, and it has become our weekly hangout spot, deftly balancing chill rural life and swashbuckling adventure. During our time in this procedurally generated world, we've conquered fantastic beasts, harsh terrains, and even the ocean. We've built an excellent village with a fully featured forge, farming facilities, and a portal house that sends us to the furthest reaches of this fantasy realm. And yet, nearly 80 real-world hours and 200 in-game days later, we're still eager to do more. It's maybe the only video game like this that we've remained engaged with past the initial week of release. This is because we're never quite sure what to expect. Valheim has made exploration and discovery thrilling again. It's quite a shock, considering that the survival genre is a well-travelled path at this point. But thanks to some clever design decisions, Valheim feels like a new frontier. Valheim is a survival game set in the Norse afterlife. Boulder meets Bear Grylls. Your ultimate goal, given to you by an enigmatic raven in the game's opening moments, is to defeat 7 legendary beasts, in order to become legendary yourself. From the outset, you're given a blank map that only fills when you occupy a new space. It doesn't mark where these beasts are, instead you're expected to find them. The game is actively telling you that in order to know where you are, you need to start exploring. There's extrinsic value to explore, so you can find a suitable starting point to build a base of operations, and eventually find the beast you need to conquer. But there's also the intrinsic value of wanting to see what there is to this brand new world. Like all exploration games, Valheim is very much built on a sensation of wanderlust. Wanderlust is a German term that roughly translates to the enjoyment of wandering, a kind of empowerment that comes from experiencing the unknown and confronting unforeseen challenges. This is all very much part and parcel of the survival experience. However, where Valheim succeeds as an exploration game is in how it encourages you to explore. One of the major setbacks in a survival game is death. Perhaps the most extreme consequence of an unforeseen challenge, this is often what's waiting for a player who wanders off into high-leveled areas before they're meant to. But being set in the Norse afterlife, death is less of a crippling blow in Valheim and more of a slight inconvenience. For one thing, all your stuff is nicely pocketed together in a headstone, ready to be collected when you venture back to where you fell. This feature isn't unique. Corpse runs are part of more difficult games like Dark Souls. However, something that Valheim does to improve this task is that there is a small perk of a speed boost when you recover anything from your headstone, meaning that if you are unlucky to die in a dangerous area, you have a better chance of reclaiming your lost things and escaping from there. It allows you to learn your lesson of not going where you're not supposed to yet doesn't discourage you from exploring elsewhere in the meantime. Eventually, you'll have the right preparations to once again venture back to these higher leveled areas, informed by not only that previous experience, but new knowledge gained elsewhere. As an example, on our 100th day in Valheim, me and my fellow Vikings were unfortunate to sail into an area with one-hit kill enemies. However, one of us was fortunate to survive long enough to build a portal between there and our home base. This not only allowed us to collect our lost items, but opened an opportunity to experiment. Dropping my precious things at home base, I could run around this area without worry of losing my progress, and in the process make new progress by stealing later game items and getting an idea of later enemy behaviours. Getting you prepared for these higher leveled areas, Valheim makes sure to sprinkle plenty of surprises throughout your adventure. Enigmatic beings you can't quite interact with, destroyed structures with storytelling goodies left behind, and enormous rune stones that drip feed lore and breadcrumbs of where to go next. But in Valheim, there's also an element of the unknown in what should be the well-known stuff. One of the first thrills you'll discover is one that's made mundane in other games: chopping down a tree. After all, you need wood for tools and wood for building material. Unlike other games, however, Valheim's enormous logs are given physicality that, as they drop, will affect other things on collision. It's a small detail, and yet we couldn't help but notice it when one tree got logged in the arms of another, creating a kind of a makeshift ramp that we could climb to survey the forest. That's not all, of course. If a tree falls on you, there is a genuine risk you might get squashed. But they can also crash into each other, creating an enormous chain reaction across a forest. Sometimes they can be weaponized against enemies. We actually tried to capitalise on this by having a community log outside the village, with the intent to roll it over invaders. Unfortunately, it ended up mostly rolling over us. So, Valheim gives an expected feature of the survival genre an unexpected wrinkle, and makes it exploitable. This kind of lateral thinking with logging was prevalent in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Valheim smartly borrowed it for its own design. Yet that same physical chemistry is applied across other objects in game. Parrying enemies, mining for ores, and building your homestead. What this meant was that even in the early stages of our developments, there was still that sense of exploration prevalent. Although I have some understanding of physics, well, I've never built a house, nor chopped down a tree. What angle I chopped at, or what was in my surroundings, were things I rarely considered in previous games. But in Valheim have all become learning experience that I've been able to apply since. The fact that something as familiar as trees made me feel adventurous in Valheim is saying something. It shows that exploration doesn't require a map and a compass, but rather the allowance to play with objects in a sandbox. It meant that even during downtime, I was learning from mistakes and seizing opportunities. Importantly, Valheim is clever in how often it doles out new things to play with. For example, beating the first legendary beast unlocks your means to mine for ores, and moving into a metal age not only improves previous innovations, but it unlocks far greater opportunities. Pesky monsters go down easier, challenging biomes can now be traversed. Not quite lifting up the velvet rope, but instead feeling like you've naturally grown from previous experiences to conquer these challenges. And because it all happens so naturally, you'll be surprised just how much progress you'll make over the days in Valheim. Yet, what best exemplifies Valheim's encouraging exploration is that the usual hunger and thirst meters of a survival game are non-existent. Instead, eating is not a burden, it's a benefit. On an empty stomach, your Viking will always have 25 hit points, and a stamina bar that will let you do a few normal actions before having to rest and recover. That means that, if you're staying back at base to do chores, you never have to worry about starving to death. It's what makes the usual day-to-day of tilling, sorting, smelting and chilling actually relaxing, rather than feeling like forced downtime. However, if you want to be able to do more dangerous work, such as fighting monsters in the wilds or braving a strange new biome, then eating is essential for a larger health and stamina pool. Having additional stamina will help in running away from serious threats, and swimming back to shoreline and boats should you hit the water. But it can also be helpful if you plan a day of strenuous mining or wood chopping, as additional stamina will make these jobs a lot breezier. It has developed into something of a joke that, in our village, before doing anything dangerous, we'll pack a lunch. A sausage, a big mushroom, maybe a berry. Poison resistance for the swamps, frost resistance for the mountains. Yet the benefit of this system is that we're far more likely to be adventurous, by going off the beaten path and trying things we've yet to before. By turning health from a ticking clock into extra protection, Valheim removes the shackles that put so many off survival games. It doesn't make things easier, but it certainly makes things far less punishing. You're in charge of setting your own difficulty. You could choose to go out nude on a scouting mission, or you could get well prepared for upcoming fights and foraging. And it will only cost a little of your time, and maybe a few easily replenishable resources. Valheim owes a lot of its design to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Not just its physical trees and flourishes for exploration, but even in how food is your means of improving meager statistics. What makes this feel wholly fresh from that experience 5 years ago is the fact that this is something that I can do alongside other players. We can work together as a group to overcome larger problems. Fighting a troll is fun on your own, but fighting a boss where one of us provides distraction while the others pelt with arrows is exhilarating. Importantly, having friends along makes that downtime a lot more meaningful than it was in Breath of the Wild. Often, those quiet moments came at the expense of slowing down the adventure. Yet in Valheim you'll naturally want to push the brakes in to keep up with the rest of your party. Smelt new ores, plant seeds and cook food. There are moments where, basking in Valheim's impressive graphical flourishes, we just settle back at base and work on a small building project, whilst using the game as an impressive chat room. Then there's moments where we'll mount up and face a new challenge in places unknown. Doing these things together has built camaraderie in a way that no other multiplayer game we've previously played has. It's made the experience far more memorable as something we collectively share. You don't have to rely on other players to experience Valheim, but the game is at its best when you and others are progressing together. It's a game best shared, as due to its procedural nature, no one experience is the same, and it's what rounds out what makes Valheim such a success as an exploration game. Because after all, the intrinsic value of exploring places unknown and overcoming new challenges is rewarding enough. But being able to share those experiences is educational. Some of our earliest forms of storytelling was imparting lessons to others in our community. It just so happens that now our communities can be made of millions, some of them watching your stories play out on Twitter, Facebook and even YouTube. The reason why my friends and I continue to keep playing Valheim is the fact that each session we continue to stumble into new developments. Whether it's our own projects back at base or out in the wilds, or the ones that develop as we learn more about the game and its many systems. We have discovered the quirks of cutting down a tree, sailing boats on epic trips across the ocean, and all the things a piece of iron unlocks, together. And wandering too far from our starting village into places unknown isn't just fun to do, it's actively encouraged through all the game's systems. You're never at real risk of starving to death or losing all your progress, so why wouldn't you take a walk on the wild side? Some technical issues aside, Valheim's consideration and polish punch well above its weight. A shock considering that games of higher budgets and prestige have yet to nail that sense of exploration that Valheim has achieved. And as I talk about Valheim, I actively want to return to playing it. I want to plunder dungeons and head into places I shouldn't, build new structures out in the wilds and cook up weird new dishes, chill out with my Viking bros, and continue to explore this endless afterlife.